So this week we learn about the Asora Nisyonis Shenesnasa Avraham Avinu. So last week was a great week, Baruch Hashem, but for me it was also a profoundly sad week because I had various different Nichum Avelims last week. I visited the family of one soldier that was killed and left 8 Yesoimim, another one that was killed and left 5 Yesoimim. Both were great people. One of them, on the way up to Lebanon, did a tefillah in the Kinneret. He said if Chas v'Sholom something happens to him, he wants to go up to the heavens b'tahara. And he also visited a family, was not a soldier. Not only soldiers die. And every death is a tragedy in the same way. Talmid Chacham that passed away at a young age. And a few times I shared a feeling. Avraham Avinu was the first man in the world to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, to Avraham Avinu wasn't much of a chiddush. I mean, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made his wife. He had no other option. You know, he had a personal relationship. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was like his father. He opened his eyes and he said, "Hi, where am I? What am I doing here? Well, what is this?" And he sees HaKadosh Baruch Hu that created him. Avraham Avinu was the first to recognize Elokei Yisrael. And when he recognized HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he felt the responsibility. The Rambam so beautifully describes at the beginning of Hilchas Avodas Kechovim how the world went midechi al dechi, from one low to a greater low. And they were all over the Avodah Zorah. Ad she'omad eisen zeh v'nikbetzu elav halofim v'ravoves v'shosel belibam. It's the ikar hagadol of emunas hayichod. He taught the world Torah. Avraham Avinu kiyam kol haTorah kula ad shelo nitno. In a way, with Ruach HaKodesh, he performed all the mitzvahs, ad shelo nitno. We would expect Avraham Avinu to have a utopian life of brocha and hatzlocha and shefa. We would expect the Kodesh Baruch Hu to give him a life of wealth, of good health, of nachas. He deserved it, no doubt, but it was not to be. Asora Nisyonis Nisnas Avraham Avinu. We don't understand the Kodesh Baruch Hu's ways, but sometimes Et asher yohav Hashem yochiach. And as she writes in Kapitel Yud Aleph and Tehillim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu never will test a person unless the Kadosh Baruch Hu knows that he has the koyach to withstand those tests, to be oimed b'nesoyin. Otherwise, he wouldn't be tested. That's what Rashi writes in Tehillim. So sometimes the Kadosh Baruch Hu tests the greatest. Avraham Avinu was the greatest Ohev Hashem. That's what the Rambam writes in Perek Yud of Hilchos Tshuva. Yeshayahu HaNavi, when he turns to the Jewish people, he calls them Zera Avraham Ohavi. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu was the greatest Ohev Hashem, we must assume Midah Keneged Midah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loved him more than anyone else, because he loved HaKadosh Baruch Hu more than anyone else. And he had a tough life, a difficult life. One is soin and another and another and another. Sora Nisyonis Nasa Avraham Avinu v'Ovad B'Kulam. So why was Avraham Avinu tested again and again? For all the future generations of Klal Yisrael. And all the koyach of Mesiras Nefesh any Jew has throughout the ages comes from Avraham Avinu. The Balaturim writes, "V'yohavto as Hashem Elokecho b'chol avavcho b'chol nafshecho b'chol moedecho b'chol nafshecho is afilu noiteles nafshecho." How do we have that koyach? The Balaturim writes, "V'ohavto," same letters as ha'avois. It is from the Ovis Hagdoshim that we have that koyach. Many times I explained the Gemara in Gittin Daf Nun Vav. Gittin Daf Nun Vav is a famous story about a Jewish mother. The Gemara doesn't say what her name was, but it is in the Midrashim. A Jewish mother, her 7 children were murdered one after the other because they all refused l'shtach avois letzelem. in the days of Chorban Beis Hamikdash. And each of those children, when he was required to bow down to Avodah Zarah, each of them quoted the posuk of Avos Hashem and of Mesiras Nefesh. And before her youngest child is to be slaughtered, she kisses him and she tells him, when you go up to the heavens, Lech v'omartu l'Avrom Avinu, ato akadatu mizbeach echad, v'ani akadati shiva mizbechois. I guess not everybody could go into Avrom Avinu up there in Gan Eden. Probably there's a hoisbochen and a gabbai and another and a secretary, and you want to go into the Rav. They'll ask you, what do you want? I mean, maybe you could talk to the secretary, send an email. Not everybody has access to Avrom Avinu. But every Yid that is moise nefesh al kedushas Hashem, no one would dare to stop him. So the mother tells her little child, go up there and look for Avrom Avinu and tell him, Atu akadatu mizbeach echad v'ani akadati shiva mizbechois. What does she mean to say? Don't think you're so great. You did it once and I did it 7 times. That's strange. If that is what she meant, why would Chazal tell us? If what she meant is wrong, who could judge a mother that sees all the 7 children killed before her eyes? But if she said something bad, why would Chazal tell it? Maybe many more things were said there. Chazal is not a storybook. If Chazal say, this is what she said, then it must be a positive saying. My understanding is, she says, please go find Avraham Avinu and say, thank you, Avraham, thank you. You were oiked wa mizbeach, but in your merit and in your schus, I was oimed min asoyin for shiva mizbechois. Avraham Avinu had 1 akedah, and in his koyach, Klal Yisrael sacrificed hundreds and thousands of akedas. And it is all v'yohavta, the koyach of Oves HaKadosh. And that is why Avraham Avinu was tested in the entire spectrum of the human experience. One test was Golus, the beginning of this week's Parsha, Lech Lecha. My understanding is this. By human nature, there are different circles that a person feels attached to, loves, loyalty. The most closest is family. His wife, his children, siblings, parents. Those are the ones we love the most and feel the closest to. Number 2 is your social circle. Your friends, guys that sit with you in yeshiva and kollel, the workplace, your neighbors, people you grew up with, people that daven in your shtibel. That is number 2. That is what the Torah calls moledes. In modern Hebrew, moledet is your homeland. But in Lashon HaTorah, moledes is where you were born, your social circle. And number 3 is your country. People have some fundamental loyalty to their country. Hundreds of millions of people in history died for their nation. Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Avraham Avinu, Lech lechu ma'artzecho. Leave your land, not only your land. Memeladetecho. Say goodbye to your friends. And you're leaving your family as well, Mabeis Avicha. And Avraham says, where am I going? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, go. You'll find your way as you go. I will show you. You don't need to know where you're going. And that is an Nisayan. And Avraham packs up. He leaves. He leaves his country, he leaves his neighbors, he leaves his family, and he doesn't even know where he's going. The other Nisayan is war. Malchemes Arba Malachim. Famine. Tzara de Gufo. An old person, 99 years old, and he does Mila. Ur Kazdem. He gives his life, and the ultimate test is כך נו אזבינכו אס יחידכו אשר אוהבתו ואלי שם ליילו. Far more easy to give away your life than to kill your son with your own hands. Va'omad bekulam. So whatever nisoyin we can have through the ages is koicho shel Avraham Avinu. I heard a story, and I must share this story. I heard it mikli sheni, not from the moyel, but a person that heard it from the moyel. So today's shir was about mitzvahs milah. So this is a Mesiras Nefesh story about milah. Before the Iron Curtain was torn to shreds, in communist Russia and Eastern Europe, it was a grave crime to do mitzvahs milah. And if you were caught, you were sent to Siberia for 20 years. And they were mo'alem b'mesiras nefesh, that were machnes yaldi esol abritza shel Avraham Avinu. Most of them were Lubavitcher Hasidim in Russia. And the Moil used to visit the town once in a few weeks, so it was almost impossible to have milah bismano. And there was an underground network, and people were notified when the Moil will come to town, and there was a list of babies, and he went from one home to the other to do milah. And the Moil told a story. I come into a home, and the tension was so tangible. I walked into the house, and I felt extreme tension. I didn't know what it's about. I circumcised the child, and even before I could bandage him and wrap it up, the mother snatched the child away from me, and she started kissing him like a crazy woman, as if she was deranged. And after a few moments, she gave me back the baby, and she explained, I have an argument with my husband. We're not frum. And my husband said, why go through this? I don't want to go to jail. You're crazy. You're insane. Why is this so important? Do you want to go to jail? Do you want to send me to jail? And he was against doing milah. And she insisted, we're Jewish. This is what our forefathers did for thousands of years, and we're going to do it. And her husband was against it. So she swore to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm not going to kiss my baby as long as he is not circumcised. Just to be sure that this is what she'll do. And the baby was almost 2 months old. So the moment the Moel walked into the house, the tension just built up. And the moment he was mohur, circumcised, she snatched away the baby and kissed him frantically. So I didn't think anybody ever did statistics. How many times does a mother kiss a baby in the first 2 months of his life? I looked for it, but I found no statistics. But I don't know how much time that mom kissed her baby after he was mohur, but she needed to make up for 2 months. That is just an example of Mesiras Nefesh, of simple people. They weren't frum. But in every Yiddish heart, there's always that spark that always lives on. And that Mesiras Nefesh comes from Avraham Avinu. In his Asora Nisyonis, Shenisnas Avraham Avinu, Va'omad Bekulam. So whatever Mesiras Nefesh we have, we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we thank the Avos HaKadoshim. So when we learn Masa Avois, we daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Beglal Avois, Toshia Bonim, V'sovi Geulo, Levnei V'neim, in Schus Avos we should be Zoicha Bekorov, to see Yeshua's Yisrael and Bias Moshiach Tzedkeinu, B'mheru V'yomeinu, Amen.